So what if the exact same instinct that kept your ancestors alive through the Ice Age is the actual reason you can't stop checking Zillow for a slightly bigger house that you don't even need?
Oh, that is such a real thing.
Right. I mean, you get the promotion you've been chasing for like 3 years. You celebrate for maybe a single weekend, and then by Monday morning, you're already staring at the next rung on the ladder.
And you feel like you're somehow falling behind already.
Exactly. It is just completely exhausting. But it brings up this deeply provocative question. Why is the human brain seemingly incapable of just being satisfied?
It really is exhausting, and yet it is arguably the most universal psychological experience in the modern world. I mean, usually we look at this insatiable drive for accumulation and we just diagnose it as a moral failing.
Like we just call it greed.
Yeah, exactly. We label it greed, we call it materialism, we treat it like a defect in our personal character, you know? We just assume there is something inherently wrong with us for always wanting more.
Which is precisely why today's deep dive is so fascinating to me. We are unpacking this philosophical dialogue between two thinkers, Nick and Maya. And they essentially take that entire premise and just turn it completely upside down.
They really do. They are looking at the actual evolutionary roots of greed.
Right. So our mission today is to dig into their source material to figure out if our relentless pursuit of wealth and status is it actually a societal flaw, or is it a deeply embedded biological feature?
And crucially, how understanding that distinction can completely rewrite how we approach our own modern ambitions.
Yes, exactly. So to get to the bottom of why that voice in your head is constantly demanding more, we actually have to step outside of modern corporate culture entirely.
Yeah, the answer is definitely not going to be found in a modern boardroom.
No.
It's found about 10,000 years in the past, in the Pleistocene epoch.
Okay, let's unpack this, because jumping from, like, my anxiety about wanting a nicer car to a prehistoric hunter-gatherer feels like a massive stretch.
It sounds like a huge leap, I know.
But the sources paint this very stark picture of what the human operating system was actually designed for. I mean, we don't need a history lesson to know that prehistoric life was brutal.
Oh, absolutely
There
brutal.
were no safety nets, no climate-controlled environments. Tomorrow was absolutely never guaranteed.
And that extreme unpredictability, that is the key to understanding the mechanism of our own brains today.
How so?
Well, think about it. In that prehistoric environment, if your group successfully hunted a large animal or, you stumbled upon a massive yield of wild vegetation, taking only what you needed for that specific afternoon wasn't a sign of moral purity.
Right, like being humble about it.
Yeah, no, it was a death sentence.
Because you had absolutely no idea what was coming next week.
Exactly.
I mean, a sudden freeze could hit, or a drought could wipe out the valley, or, you could just break your ankle and be completely unable to forage for a whole month.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So within that context of constant environmental threat, holding on to extra resources wasn't greed. It was the highest possible form of rational, calculated wisdom.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. The individuals who hoarded, the ones whose brains obsessively planned for a catastrophic tomorrow, those were the ones who actually survived the brutal winters.
And because they survive, they pass those specific genetic traits down.
Yes. Those anxious, hoarding behavioral instincts went directly down the generational line. The people who were easily satisfied, well, they simply didn't survive to become our ancestors.
That reframes so much of modern behavior. I mean, it really makes me think about the psychological shift that happens to people right before a catastrophic weather event.
Oh, that's a great example.
Right. Think about walking into a massive supermarket 24 hours before a Category 5 hurricane is projected to make landfall, or like hours before a historic city-shutting blizzard.
Total chaos.
Exactly. The
Mhm.
shelves are stripped bare, the canned goods are gone, the bottled water is just wiped out. And when you were the person standing in that aisle, throwing 10 extra cans of baked beans into your cart, you don't feel like a malicious, greedy villain.
No, not at all.
You just feel a deep, primal sense of responsibility. Your brain is firing off alarm bells saying, I have to secure my family's survival.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it because it highlights the underlying mechanism perfectly. In that moment in the grocery store, facing impending scarcity, your ancient survival wiring suddenly aligns perfectly with your modern environment.
Right, the threat is real again.
Yeah, Exactly. The panic, the drive to stockpile, that is your 10,000-year-old brain releasing a cascade of stress hormones. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is a biological protection mechanism.
But, and this is where the source material gets incredibly interesting to me, nature generally has built-in boundaries for that instinct, right?
It does. Very hard boundary.
Let's explore those boundaries,
Yeah.
because clearly we don't see this kind of runaway infinite hoarding in the rest of the animal kingdom.
We don't, because nature creates physical limits for consumption. Consider the biological realities of an apex predator, like a lion. A lion is driven to hunt by the exact same survival instincts we have. But a lion can only consume so much meat before its stomach is physically stretched to capacity.
Right.
And when that happens, the stomach sends a chemical satiation signal to the brain, effectively turning off the drive to hunt.
Like a biological fullness switch.
Exactly, a fullness switch. And it goes beyond just stomach capacity, No single lion can physically claim ownership of every zebra on the savannah.
Yeah, that would be impossible.
Right. No eagle, no matter how dominant, can monopolize the entire sky and prevent other birds from flying. The physical realities of the natural world, like caloric limits, physical exhaustion, territorial bounds, they naturally cap the instinct to consume.
So the biological software never had to worry about infinite accumulation.
No, because infinite accumulation was physically impossible.
So an animal's wealth is strictly limited by the physical laws of nature. There is a hard stop.
Yeah.
Which logically brings us to the human problem.
Yes, the glitch in our system.
If natural physical limits cap this instinct for millions of years, how did we bypass the biology? We must have invented something that broke the physical rules.
We absolutely did. We invented money.
Ah.
Think about it. For the vast majority of human history, our resources were identical to the lions. They were physical things: food, water, firewood, animal pelts.
Stuff you can touch?
Stuff you can touch. And because they were physical, they had natural limits. You cannot hoard 10,000 apples because they will rot in a week.
Right, nature forces the issue.
Exactly. The physical world forces a limit on your accumulation, but money is a completely abstract concept. It doesn't spoil, it doesn't take up physical space.
It represents unlimited exponential resources.
Limited.
Here's where the psychology gets really fascinating. Because a bank account is just a digital number on a screen. It doesn't trigger that biological fullness switch you were talking about with the lion.
And that is the exact mechanism causing the glitch. Human beings created an economic system where someone can accumulate abstract wealth far beyond what they or even their descendants could ever personally use in 1,000 lifetimes.
But our brains don't get it.
No. Our ancient survival instinct, that biological software running in the background of our minds, it doesn't know what a digital banking portfolio is. It doesn't understand compound interest.
It just knows physical stuff.
Right. It relies on physical satiation signals.
Yeah.
A full stomach, a warm fire, a secure cave.
So when it looks at a spreadsheet with $1 million on it, the brain doesn't register that as survival secured.
It doesn't register it at all. The ancient brain just looks at the abstract number, feels the latent ancestral fear of a coming winter, and keeps screaming more.
Wow.
Even when our physical survival is secured by overwhelming, objectively absurd amounts of wealth, the biological alarm bell never shuts off.
Yeah.
Because it never receives the physical signal to power down.
That is wild. And, the dialogue between Nick and Maya uses this incredible analogy to illustrate this friction.
Oh, the bicycle one.
Yes, the bicycle analogy. They compare the human condition to taking a high-powered rocket engine and strapping it onto a standard two-wheeled bicycle.
Such a great visual.
It really is. The rocket engine represents money, this modern abstract tool of unlimited exponential accumulation. And the bicycle represents our ancient, biologically limited survival instinct.
And the engine was absolutely never designed to be mounted on that kind of vehicle.
Not at all. It vividly captures the mechanical failure we are experiencing as a society.
Because when you ignite a rocket engine on a fragile bicycle frame, the tires just melt.
The metal twists.
Yeah, the entire structure tears itself apart because the structural integrity of the bike simply cannot handle the sheer thrust of the rocket.
And that is what happened to human psychology.
Precisely. We took a rudimentary, perfectly functional survival mechanism, strapped the rocket engine of abstract infinite wealth onto it, and now we look around at the skyrocketing rates of anxiety.
The massive wealth inequality.
Yeah, the environmental degradation. And we act shocked by the destruction. The vehicle is shaking itself apart.
Wait, I need to pause you right there because this actually brings up a massive issue.
Okay, what's that?
Well, If you are saying this drive for more is quite literally hardwired into our DNA, and that money is this unstoppable rocket engine tearing our biological bicycle apart, that sounds incredibly bleak.
It does sound pretty grim.
Are you suggesting we are biologically trapped? Because if the urge to hoard is an evolutionary requirement and fighting human nature is historically a losing battle, are we just doomed to crash the bike into a wall?
It seems deterministic, I completely agree. But the source material provides a brilliant counter to that exact fear.
Oh, good. I was getting worried.
Yeah, don't worry. If we step back and look at the bigger evolutionary picture, we realize we aren't doomed at all. Because we are actually misidentifying what makes us so successful as a species.
What do you mean?
Well, the survival instinct, that anxious drive to stockpile, it was incredibly useful during the Ice Age. But evolution's actual greatest gift to humanity isn't the capacity for greed.
It's not.
No, it is the capacity for adaptation.
Ah, so we aren't locked into the hoarding instinct just because it worked 10,000 years ago.
Not at all. I mean, every successful species on this planet survives because it adapts its behavior when its environmental circumstances change.
Right.
And no species has demonstrated a more spectacular capacity for rapid adaptation than human beings. Think about it. We adapted our physical environments from dense forests to open plains.
From caves to cities.
Exactly. We adapted our shelters from dark caves to climate-controlled skyscrapers. We went from banging rocks together to create a spark to writing complex code on quantum computers.
That is a massive leap.
It is. Adaptation is our true evolutionary superpower. The hoarding instinct was just one temporary tool.
So the question we should be grappling with isn't how to fight our evolution. The question is, how do we use our superpower of adaptation to solve the rocket engine problem?
Exactly.
I see the distinction now. It's not about suppressing our nature. It's about updating the software to match the current hardware.
That's a great way to put it.
Which highlights a glaring, almost painful contradiction in our modern world that Nick and Maya point out in the text.
The abundance contradiction.
Right. We possess technology right now that is capable of producing a level of abundance that would look like pure magic to our ancestors.
Absolute magic.
We can yield massive amounts of food from incredibly small plots of land. We can harness renewable energy directly from the sun and the wind.
And we understand the mechanisms of psychology, sociology, and global logistics better than at any point in human history.
Exactly. The capacity for universal physical abundance is no longer a theoretical dream. It is technologically available to us right now.
And yet, despite possessing all the tools for abundance, our economic and societal systems are still stubbornly, almost obsessively, built on the archaic assumption of permanent scarcity.
We act like the prehistoric winter is still coming to starve us all, even though we're sitting in heated homes with pantries full of food.
That is the defining contradiction of the modern era. We have the physical tools of abundance, but we are still running the psychological software of scarcity.
So how do we fix that?
Well, the source material argues we need to look at how we actually achieve this technological abundance in the first place. How did we get the skyscrapers, the modern hospitals, the satellite networks?
I mean, we collaborated.
Exactly. The answer is fundamental to our survival. We didn't do it alone. No single person, no matter how brilliant, can build a modern functioning city by themselves.
Definitely not.
No one individual can source the raw materials, engineer the complex aerodynamics, code the flight systems, and assemble a commercial airplane in a vacuum.
The math of human progress is deeply, inherently collaborative. The text frames it so beautifully with this progression. Let me see. It says one person can carry a single stone. 2 people can carry a boulder. Hundreds of people coordinating together can build a bridge. Thousands can build a city. And millions of minds working in tandem can completely transform civilization.
Which forces us to confront a really uncomfortable question about our modern culture.
What's that?
Well, if every monument of civilization, every leap in modern medicine, and every technological marvel is the direct result of massive, invisible, collective effort, why does our society remain so fiercely, almost religiously, fixated on the myth of the individual?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We have cultivated a culture that idolizes the single winner.
That myth is everywhere, especially in modern tech culture. We are obsessed with the solo genius narrative.
Completely obsessed.
We look at a billionaire who founded a massive tech empire, we put their face on the cover of magazines, and we celebrate them as this solitary titan of industry who just willed the future into existence from a garage.
Right, the lone wolf innovator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in doing so, we completely erase the underlying reality of how things are actually built.
We erase the collective infrastructure that made their success even mathematically possible.
Yes. We erase the thousands of invisible software engineers who actually wrote the millions of lines of code. We ignore the underpaid public school teachers who spent decades educating those engineers.
And the construction workers.
Right. The construction workers who poured the concrete for the roads their delivery trucks use. And the university researchers who developed the foundational internet protocols using government funding decades ago.
All of it gets ignored. We celebrate the one person standing at the very top of the pyramid who managed to accumulate the most abstract wealth while completely ignoring the millions of invisible structural contributions that actually keep the pyramid from collapsing.
History is incredibly eager to remember the individual and terribly quick to forget the collective.
And this isn't just a philosophical annoyance, It actually triggers the biological mechanism we were talking about earlier.
Oh, really?
When society constantly reinforces the myth of the individual, when the prevailing narrative is that you are on your own and you must fight your way to the top to secure your own survival, well, it feeds right back into that ancient scarcity panic.
Because if you genuinely believe you are alone, the biological alarm bells start ringing again.
Precisely. If you think you are the only one responsible for your survival in a hostile world, your 10,000-year-old brain wakes up and says, "We are in danger. Hoard everything."
Wow.
The obsession with the individual reactivates the survival threat. But if you recognize that you are supported by a massive, interconnected network of human cooperation, that you are not actually alone in the wilderness, the brain can finally relax its scarcity alarm.
That connects the dots so clearly. The cultural narrative of individualism is actually keeping the ancient biological panic alive.
Exactly.
So, bringing this back to you, the listener, what does this all mean for how we live our lives today?
That is the big question.
Right. If I am someone who wants to achieve great things, how do I redefine my own ambition moving forward? Because I don't want to lose my drive, but I also don't want to be strapped to a runaway rocket engine that's destroying my peace of mind.
It requires a fundamental paradigm shift in how we understand and direct our own energy.
Okay, what kind of shift?
Well, the core takeaway from Nick and Maya's dialogue isn't that human ambition is inherently bad or that wanting to build things is evil.
That's a relief.
Right. Ambition is just raw evolutionary energy. The critical question is about the direction we choose to point that energy. We have a choice.
Okay.
Do we continue to pour all of our vast intelligence, our creativity, and our unprecedented technological power into the endless, isolated pursuit of individual accumulation? Or do we finally use our superpower of adaptation and begin directing that incredible ambition toward collective flourishing?
So it's a shift from asking the primitive question, how much can I get for myself, to the evolved question, what can we build together?
That is the evolutionary leap we have to make. The future survival of humanity doesn't require us to evolve into faster humans. It doesn't require physically stronger humans.
Right.
It requires wiser humans. We need humans who are finally able to recognize that the greatest, most unstoppable force on this planet is not an individual hoarding power, status, or abstract wealth.
Correct.
The greatest force on Earth is millions of human minds networked together, working toward a shared, common purpose.
That is a profoundly empowering way to look at the human experience.
Yeah.
I mean, if we circle all the way back to where we started this conversation, to that exhausting, nagging voice in the back of your head that is always demanding more.
The one pushing you to check the bank account one more time.
Exactly. Always pushing you to buy the next thing or chase the next title.
Yeah.
What the source material reveals today is that this urge isn't a sign that you are broken.
Not at all.
It isn't a malicious flaw in your character.
No, it is simply an outdated operating system. It is a prehistoric survival program desperately trying to process a modern world of unlimited abstract money and failing to find a physical satiation point.
It is the biological equivalent of trying to run incredibly old, primitive software on a brand new, highly advanced computer.
It's going to glitch.
Yeah, it's going to freeze, and it's going to cause a lot of internal errors. And so, as we wrap up today's deep dive, we want to turn this entire concept over to you, the listener. we really want you to examine your own relationship with this abstract concept of more.
Yeah, take a quiet moment and look back at your own life. Look at your career trajectory and your financial goals.
And try to identify the specific moments in your life when that intense drive for accumulation actually served a purpose.
Right. When did it provide real, tangible security and safety for you and the people you love?
And perhaps more importantly, when did you cross the threshold?
The tipping point.
When did that drive begin to feel less like a survival tool and more like a runaway rocket engine that you could no longer control? When did the relentless pursuit of more imaginator stop being about keeping the winter at bay and start becoming the very thing that was causing you the most stress and anxiety in your daily life?
Recognizing that exact threshold, that invisible line where biological survival ends and abstract excess begins, that is the very first step in taking back control from that ancient instinct.
Because once you see the mechanism for what it is, it loses its power over you.
It absolutely does.
We really hope this exploration of Nick and Maya's dialogue has given you some new, concrete tools to analyze your own ambitions. And maybe, just maybe, it has relieved a little bit of the guilt you might feel when you find yourself pacing the aisles before a storm, or constantly looking toward the next milestone, just trying to make sure you have enough.
Yeah, you aren't greedy. You are just human running an old program.
To close out today's deep dive, we want to leave you with one final haunting thought directly from the source material.
Yes, this is a question that cuts right to the heart of our evolutionary future, and it is something to mull over long after you finish listening to this.
Keep it in mind as you go about your week.
Think about our incredible, proven capacity to adapt, and ask yourself this. If evolution gave us the instinct for more, can evolution also give us the wisdom to know when enough is enough?